Hey everyone, it's All-Star Ethan here. It's been a while since I've done a guide video and my win rate has doubled since last season, so I think showing you how to win more games would be some useful content. Now, a fair amount of parts that I'll be talking through are suited for beginner to average players. So if you're already hitting Masters and Pred or stomping through pubs lobbies, then this isn't for you. But if you have a poor win rate, or you feel like you lose to players that aren't as mechanically skilled as you, or if you just straight up want to win more, then this is the video for you. So let's get started. The first part to winning a game is the drop. There's a few key parts to a successful drop, and the first part is choosing where. Now, I'll suggest having a constant drop location that you always go for with a backup as well. This is so you can learn a solid loot path, which I'll be going through shortly. Now, in order to get past the opening few minutes safely, I'll suggest a green location, as the red areas are usually much hotter and will be contested. Personally, I like to drop Power Grid for a few reasons. First, there is enough loot for the whole team. Secondly, it is usually only contested by one team, if at all. Also, it has the opportunity to third party at Energy Depot, Turbine, Rift, Docks, and the Fight Night boxing ring that this map is too old to show. If, however, Power Grid has a few teams dropping already, which can happen if the dropship is right above it, then I could deviate to the Rift, which is so big that you can usually get a part to yourself. Now, Power Grid isn't the only location to fit these requirements, so just pick the place you prefer the most, after avoiding the hot drops like Estates and Hammond Labs, because they are far too risky and you're likely to die before you get too far into the match. If you're curious about Kings Canyon, I tend to drop Rig, and I head to Swamps as a backup in case Rig is too hot. Now, there's actually also a place between Rig and Swamps where if I see two teams contesting each other at Rig, you can quite easily drop there, grab a gun, grab a shield, get on the jump tower, and you can go and third party that before they realise what's happened. So look out for these areas between the big points of interest, as these are the kind of places that you might want to split off to if your big point of interest is being contested. Other important notes whilst dropping are to ping individually where each of you are going so you don't all end up on exactly the same loot. And if you notice that you're alone, you can spread nice and wide so you can get the loot quicker. And if you are being contested, then stay near your teammates because you want to try and pick out one of the contesting team and basically have a 3v1 against them. Always look around you during your drop in case a team is landing late on you. And also split from your jump master as you do go slightly faster whilst flying solo, so you can get there that little bit quicker. Our next key part is looting. Prioritise your loot in this way: guns, body shields, meds, and ammo. Once you have those four sorted, you can start looking around for things like grenades and attachments. Obviously, if you have been contested on drop, then guns and a body shield is the utmost importance, and then trying to attack that team as fast as possible before they get themselves sorted. However, if you manage to land safely, we'll go into the next part. So, once you've dropped and you've grabbed a few things, you should have an idea on your loadout for the rest of the match within the next minute. For example, you might have picked up an Elsar and a Wingman, and although you may feel useless with these guns, you should already know if you'll be trading them for a Volt and a Hemlock, for instance, so that you already have the ammo you need. This is the time to go on mic and ask players to ping out whichever weapons you need. For instance, if I picked up an RE45, I would be pinging out that I need an R301 or an R99. Unfortunately, there's no system for this in the game, so you have to go on mic to do so. Another key part to looting is to have a clear loot path for each location you drop. What I mean by that is that you always drop exactly the same place and run the same way to loot as fast and efficiently as possible. The reason for this is because you want to be prepared for an attacking team, or to go and attack a team as fast as possible. Now will be the time to have a look at your map as we go for the next part, which is rotation. So for rotation, I think that is the part which most average players get slightly wrong when they are going for wins. Now, we mentioned earlier that you might drop near two teams that are contesting each other and go third party it. However, after sort of doing a little bit of looting yourself and looking at the map, if that third party is way out of ring or going in the opposite direction, then don't go do it. What you need to do is rotate as early as possible if you really want to go for that win. Now, you also need to choose whether you're going to be playing edge play or centre circle, so this depends on your team comp. What I mean by this is if you've got somebody like a Gibraltar or a Revenant or something like that, then you want to be playing around the edge of the ring so that you can attack teams that are hanging around that area. However, if you're playing people like a Watson and Caustic, then you want to be getting to the centre of that ring as quickly as possible so that you can get yourself set up in a good position. Now, this also means that it's very handy to have a recon character, and I personally play Bloodhound a lot, so I don't have to worry about that. I used to play Pathfinder a lot, so also never had to worry about it. However, if you find that you have randoms on your team that have not picked a recon character, I think you should pick one yourself. The reason for that is so that you know where that second ring is going to be, because that is going to be more important in choosing where to rotate. It's well and good getting to the first ring early, however if you end up the wrong side of it, you've still got a lot of choke points to go through that all the other teams are going to be going through as well. Now, on the topic of choke points, we want to avoid them as much as possible. Now, you all know what the choke points are. They are the areas of the map where you are forced to go through a quite narrow passage. Examples of this are things like bunker or perhaps turbine. Areas like that lots of players will converge in as they try to get from one ring to the other. So the aim for this is to avoid those or hit them as early as you can if you have to. For instance, if you see that you need to go through a certain choke point in order to get to the next ring, you want to be able to go through that as early as possible before lots of teams get around there. Now, other parts are the ring damage numbers as well. Now, the first ring and the second ring actually got nerfed a little bit in terms of you can stay in there longer than you used to be able to. However, third, fourth, fifth, etc. are really, really painful. Now, what this means is that if you've got to rotate a certain way and a team is blocking you off and you feel like you can't get through them or it's going to be too risky to fight them, you can go back into the ring during rings 1 and 2. Just be wary, obviously, on the timer of when it's turning into ring 3. So certainly do that. It's saved me a bunch of times going back into the ring, even if it's like a minute and a half. As long as you've got like a med kit and a couple of syringes, you're usually okay. Obviously, having a lifeline is great for this because she can just heal you up when you get around the outside. Now, at some point, obviously during the match, you're going to be fighting, okay? I mean, I know obviously, you know, if you want to win games, then, you know, if you want to play really sweaty like ranked, you kind of wait until the last 5 teams to fight. But this is pubs after all. You're going to be fighting and it's the way to get better at the game. So that's going to be our next section. Okay, so on to fights. Now, if you are wanting to win games, like I went through earlier, you don't want to be pushing fights that are too dangerous, okay? Now, one of the main ways that you can do this and get yourself enough loot, get yourself some kills, get yourself some damage, get your shields up and things like that is by going for third parties. Now, like I said earlier on, with the issue with third parties, make sure that it's not too hectic. If other teams are starting to run in there as well, then you guys need to dip, alright? You can't go for that, that's not safe. And what you also need to do is some of the people really, really screw up a lot of the times, they third party too early. It happens to me loads, like I'm attacking a team, someone comes in to third party me way too early. Me and the team that are attacking each other, we back away from each other, we both just start beaming the one that's trying to third party us. So wait until there's a few knocks, make sure you look at the kill feed for those, and then go in when people are just starting to heal up, or whether their teams are already down and they're reviving them, etc, etc. Also, if you really want to win games, do not be afraid of retreating. Now, this means that if you are in a fight with a team and somebody's coming along to third party them, just get out of there. Or, for instance, if you're in a bit of a stalemate with a team as well, both of you are sort of mid-range poking at one another, and you feel like there's going to be teams drawn in, or you feel like the ring's coming in a bit fast and they're kind of blocking you off, just get out of there. Just wrap around, do what I said before, and maybe go into the ring, take a little bit of damage. That's absolutely fine, okay? Other key parts of fighting are obviously sticking close to your teammates as well, and making sure that you reset quickly with things like shield swaps. Even if you've got a purple shield that's like got one slot in it, and you have to swap it to a blue shield that's full, do that, okay? Do that, get yourself reset before there's a third party that comes and gets you. That's the utmost priority there. And another thing as well is if you finish off a team, one of your teammates is down and needs reviving, get yourself healed up first with either a shield swap or popping a Phoenix kit, whatever it is, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody come and beam you when you're on like 50 HP whilst reviving a teammate. Get yourself healed, you are the priority. Some of the randoms will hate it and they'll be pinging out and stuff like that, but you got to do it, you really do, okay? Now, fights, this isn't really a fight guide. I am going to be releasing one of those shortly, so feel free to subscribe, turn those notifications on, and you'll get the notification when I release that one. I'm hoping to do it next week, so you'll be able to see that shortly. But what we're going to do now is move on to the end game. Well, we've made it through most of the game. We've managed to get ourselves in a relatively decent position. And it's the end game. There's, circle 3 or 4. There's only 3 or 4 teams left, etc. Now, how do we win? How do we finish it off and do the job? One of the most important things you need to do is learn the final circles. Now, this just comes with practice, and the longer you get down to that top 5 teams into circle 4, 5, 6, etc., the more you'll learn. So, with practice comes experience, and comes wins eventually. So, what I mean by learning the circles is knowing exactly where circles end based upon ring 3. Now, they've randomised them a little bit, so it's harder to tell from ring 2, but ring 3 can usually get it. What that means is you want to be able to gain that advantageous position early. This is usually high ground or a building that's easy to secure. But something that a lot of people let themselves down with, and I certainly found it when I've played ranked with some people, is we'll get ourselves all set up in a building. We've got Caustic Watson, we get in the ring nice and early, where it's going to end pretty much, get ourselves all set up, but then we've not got any presence. Now, what I mean by that is when you are down to those last few teams, you want to make yourself stand out as the team not to fight. I.e., you want to be putting down damage on people, so don't just sit there in a building hiding. Make sure you're around on the rooftops, make sure you're poking teams out, doing some damage, getting quite heavy in there so that the other teams that you're doing damage to are like, we don't want to fight those guys can hit their shots, okay? Now, the reason you want to do this and give yourself that presence there so teams that don't want to fight you is because you want to be the third team to fight. Now, what I mean by this is usually at the end of the game, there's 3 teams left. Okay, this happens for whatever reason. There could be 4 teams, 5 teams, but usually the 4th and 5th are it's like a rat or a solo. So it's usually just 3 teams. Now, once you get into that position, it's kind of a bit of a stalemate. And the way that you get the highest win rate is by being the last team to fight. So you want to force the other team to do so. So if you're putting down enough damage, keeping teams distant from you, you're going to force them into the other team, basically. So that's what you need to be doing. Always, as much as possible, try and be that last team to fight and show no weakness, okay? If one of you gets their shield broken, make sure the other 2 are putting down some covering fire on them. Make sure you keep that presence up. Anyway, this is the end of my guide on how to win more. I hope that you take these tips and advice instead and go ahead and win some more games. Let me know in the comments if you do. Let me know if it helped. Like I said, feel free to drop a sub as well. I do love it. It makes my day. It really, really does. Each and every one of you. So I'll see you next time. I've been All-Star Ethan. Cheers.